Hello and happy holiday Monday or holiday week, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Thanksgiving is a couple of days away, and I know that I am going to be working out the next few days like a complete lunatic to try and make sure that I make room for all of the goodness that I'm going to be eating up on Thursday and potentially on Friday. So welcome everybody. Hopefully you had a great weekend. I didn't get enough. I didn't get much gaming. Tyler hung out over the weekend. We went and did some Christmas shopping and just hung out and had a lot of fun doing that. Bought a couple of new controllers, as you saw on socials. Got him the Metroid amiibos, which he really wanted. We were able to find them, surprisingly enough. But hopefully you had a good weekend. And speaking of which, Fuzzy Belvedere, how the heck was your weekend, sir?
It's pretty good. It was actually the beginning of my wife's 9-day vacation.
Oh,
Um,
very nice.
she did some, I guess, like overtime or like switch hours for like with teachers. It's like when you call the parents, do extra duty and stuff like that. So she has Monday through Wednesday off this week, and then school normally is closed, I believe, Thursday and Friday. So she doesn't go back until the following Monday. But yeah, just relaxing around the house, watching some movies, playing some video games as well. See Diablo's in the background. Finally had a build that was worthy of beating Lilith, and
Oh, very nice.
was able to do that. Although I didn't realize standing on certain parts of the floor will kill you, and as
Oh.
long as I stand on those parts of the floor, I can pretty much kill her rather quickly. So yeah, I'm pretty happy. But yeah, just man, it's going to be a great time for get with family, friends, and chow down here towards the later part of the week. But man, we got some interesting stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, so you know what, folks, again, there isn't a lot of news going on right now. So, of course, sometimes you got to get creative, because I want to do the shows. I want to hang out with the folks. I want to continue to, produce content. And one of the conversations that happened last week, ladies and gentlemen, that I think went under discussed, at least in my opinion, is something that I saw a post from Andy Robinson. Now, Andy, if you don't know who he is the owner and operator of videogameschronicles.com. And obviously, there's been some very interesting hardware conversations in the last couple of weeks, specifically, early October when the Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X release. Now, there's been a lot of course, back and forth with, is it an Xbox? Is it just a PC handheld? What can it do? Why is it so much? Is it going to get any better? All of those questions have been discussed, answered, and I think rectified. If again, they are updating everything. We do know that they are currently working on a way that every game that you own is going to be playable at one point or another. How I've personally used the Xbox Ally X is exactly what I was hoping for and intended. I literally have it sitting on a dock, and it's always charged when I want to play a game, like for instance, The Outer Worlds or even Black Ops for that matter. I can simply do that using the handheld. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not that great in Black Ops on a small screen. I'd rather much play on a big screen. But like Ball X Pit, for instance, is a very addictive game. Now, I don't like it as much as, let's say, Vampire Survivors. I think that it's okay. It has not really kind of dug its hooks into me, so to speak, but it is a game that is playable there. And that's a great little game to play there. Now, again, I don't know whether you folks took the time to see the opening animation for Marvel's Cosmic game that's coming out. It's a side-scrolling beater. It's I believe it's called Marvel's Cosmic Invasion, and the opening animation is as you would expect, simply stunning, and the game looks great. 4-player co-op beat 'em up with all of your favorite and maybe some really wild ones in there. Like for me, I don't know whether you know or not, I'm a huge Beta Ray Bill fan. I have been since he was introduced in Thor 100 years ago. And the fact that he's playable and there's even a Cosmic Ghost Rider as well. I mean, that game is going to kill. It's coming out December 1st, and it's one of my actually most anticipated games of the year because I like side-scrolling beat 'em ups. I don't necessarily know
Mm-hmm.
if it's going to be a play anywhere. I'm actually not sure, but if it is, and I can check when we start getting Fuzzy's a breakdown of what we're going to talk about. But if it is, that's a game that's going to be really fun on the handheld. Well, another piece of information, Fuzzy, came out last week that kind of shook the games industry to its core. And that is the introduction of Valve's Steam Machine 2.0. Now, the minute this thing was released, of course, Xbox is doomed. Xbox is dead. Even Destin Legary. Now, granted, I love Destin. I really do. I think that's a guy who's a great content creator, an incredible community member. But he even jumped on board, was like, did Valve beat Xbox to the punch? And the answer is no, they did not. And I gotta give again shout out to Andy Robinson and VGC. I know Andy's kind of been in a little bit of hot water with the games community. Look, I've met him, and you've heard me tell the story before. We've had some private conversations. I think he's a great part of the community. I like what he does, and I love what VGC does. It's one of the few publications that, for the most part, okay, and I'm being very frank here, for the most part, stays away from the clickbaitery. Now, have they done it? Sure. I think every site has done it. But to be fair for Andy and his team of writers, I really like what they're doing over there. Well, Andy put out this post, and I think really it should easily break down what to expect, because one of the more glaring things that weren't a part of this announcement from Valve was the price. Now, this kind of happened, Fuzzy, with of course the Xbox Ally and Ally X, because originally we thought 6 and 8, right, or 6 and 9, or 7 and 9 for these devices. And turns out that the big boy was 1,000, and the little one was, well, not as expensive, but 6 and change, right? Give or take. So a lot of people have been asking, well, is this Steambox 2.0 going to disrupt the console in your living room industry, meaning Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation? Now, we know that Switch is doing very well. PlayStation, they have over 84 million consoles shipped. And again, I'm not going to get into it shipped, sold. It's a lot of consoles out there, folks. That's a lot of consoles. And Xbox is, I think has been reduced down to 16 million. Because it was at almost 40, but every week it seems to shrink even more. It's the most ridiculous thing. It's the only one that shrinks. Of course, folks, I'm being facetious, but with their 40 million plus consoles out there, obviously the living room is well represented between all three platforms. So when this was announced, it kind of took people by surprise. Now, granted, there were some rumors that they were going to, unveil something, and there were some murmurs about maybe it was going to be the Steam 2.0. And then, of course, it was, right. So it's this box looks like a GameCube. It has a detachable faceplate with a bunch of different versions, which I think is actually cool. It's one of the things that were super cool about the Xbox 360 is the fact that it had faceplates. As a matter of fact, happy birthday to the 360, which celebrated its 20th anniversary. My God, it's been 20 years already. That's just crazy. But listen, great console. I'll say this, and I think most people in the chat will agree. I miss those blades. Oh my God, that was probably some of the best UI I think Xbox has ever had. I mean, again, the UI now is very functional. It gets you to where you got to get to, but those blades were just amazing. I think most people will agree as well. But Fuzzy, in this story from VGC, and I want to read a quote from Andy, where this comes the way of basically somebody on the team that's making this thing. And there are some talks that Valve themselves is not going to subsidize this thing. As a matter of fact, this Steam Machine 2.0 is expected to be as pricey as a freaking PC, and that's saying something. So let me read directly from Andy Robinson's article that he posted last week. It goes on to say the title is Valve confirms Steam Machine will be priced, quote, like a PC with the same level of performance. And it goes on to say in its subcategory, Valve won't subsidize Steam Machine's price like console manufacturers, according to some developers. Now, I did want to, again, read directly from the article, and this article has already been added to the show notes of today's live stream. So when it goes up on video on demand, if you want to click it and read it for yourself, by all means, please choose to do so. Andy goes on to say, Valve has said that the price of the console-style PC, the Steam Machine, will be in line with comparable specs on PC and not subsidized to reach lower price points, as it's often the case with PlayStation and Xbox consoles. So, again, I'm going to read verbatim, folks, from the article. Speaking to the Friends Per Second podcast, Valve's Pierre-Loup Graphius claimed that the Steam Machine's price had not been nailed down internally, but that Valve's aim was to offer, quote, a good deal in line with equivalent powered PCs. And he has a quote here. I think that if you build a PC from parts to get basically the same level of performance, that's the general price window that we aim to be at. Now, again, folks, I'm all about that evidence-based conversation. So what I went and did, and again, folks, I don't know nothing about PCs. This conversation is going to be better dropped at the foot or the lap or onto the lap of Fuzzy Belvedere, who understands tech. So I just did a general search, and I asked ChatGPT to give me the pricing for a mid-ranged PC, right? Not with all the monitors, just simply the rig itself. And it has here a mid-range PC costs approximately anywhere between now, again, in this time, $1,200 to $1,500 today, offering a balance of performance for high-end 1080p or solid 1440p gaming. This price point typically includes modern CPUs like the Ryzen 5 7 or Core i5, and a dedicated GPU such as the RTX 4060 Ti with a similar AMD card. The RAM goes anywhere between 16 and 32 gigabytes, and usually the SSDs are about 1 terabyte. Now, Fuzzy, I don't expect that the Steam Machine is going to cost $1,000, though there has been talk about it being upwards of $800. Now, I've had heard, and again, I really don't know this person, so I don't know if they were being facetious or serious, but someone actually wrote, well, thank God I could take my PC on the go. And I don't know, again, if that was being funny or not, but you can take your PC on the go right now with your ROG Xbox Ally. And that is something that we're going to come back to at some point or another, because the price at $600 and $1,000 is certainly better than what is going to be a stationary device. Now, I have heard some people who don't care about PC say, well, boom, who's this for? It's not for me. Well, it's for somebody. Otherwise, Valve wouldn't have spent the money to make this thing. So it's going to sell. I'm personally not going to buy it because I don't really have an attachment to Steam. I'm dabbling in Steam now thanks to the Xbox Ally X, but for the most part, I am certainly not going to buy this. Fuzzy, let's try and break down why this thing might actually be $800. And if it is that high, do you see that this is going to be considered a niche item?
It's tough to say. Like the biggest drawback right now is RAM prices, which a couple of people in the chat have mentioned. Like RAM prices for like 32 gigs of modern or current memory is running close to $700. Like I think I paid a few years ago somewhere upwards of 200, but that was like what 2021 or something like that. So the prices are more than doubling, if not quadrupling at this point when it comes to RAM. So that's the big question mark of where the pricing will fall for this item. Initially, if RAM prices weren't an issue, I would assume, even though they've been saying it's going to be priced more like a mini PC than it will a console, I was still thinking 600 for the 512 gigabyte setup, and then the controller would be at least another 100. Like the controller by itself might cost you 110 to 120, but if you bundle it with the Steam machine, which they will do bundles, it's just that they'll have individual prices as well. If you were to bundle it, I was figuring 700 out the door for the 512 plus tax or whatever. And then if you wanted to get the 2 terabyte, expect to pay at least 150 to 200 more, because that's what that amount of hard drive or SSD would cost. Be it that Steam is going to probably get it at a discount, being mass purchase, so they'll make a couple of bucks off of it, even if they only charge 150 more. But I think the prices were looking at somewhere 600 for the plain box at 512 and 700 for the plain box with the 2 terabyte, add another 100 for the controller. Now, memory being what it is at this point in time, and they're going with a little bit of a faster memory setup, that could add another 200 to the price just for the memory itself. So that's actually the bigger, I wouldn't say problem, but the bigger factor as far as how high this goes. I can't imagine this being in the $1,000 range. Yes, it's 6 times more powerful than the Steam Deck. You can get Steam Deck somewhere between 350 to 600, depending on what screen you get and size hard drive or SSD you get. But in the grand scheme of things, there's 2 factors that keeps me believing that this will be below $1,000, even for the 2 terabyte. One, and I don't mean to besmirch Steam's or Valve's credibility or quality of a product. They're using reject chipsets. That's like public knowledge. It's a reject chipset that's basically parking 2 of its cores, and it's when I say reject chipsets, there are chipsets that have like 8 cores and 10 cores, and sometimes not all of those 10 or not all of those 8 are functioning at 100% or 99.98% efficiency. So if you park 2 of those cores and one of them was kind of like below spec or below standard, it's not going to affect the overall. The performance you'll get out of that with just using 6 cores will be amazing. It's just a matter of when you compare it to chips that are out there that are 8 cores, because it's more of a comparable chip to that. It's just that 2 apart, so it's not getting its full range of ability. So that's why I still think that this thing is going to be sub 1,000. The other thing, when it comes to who this is targeted for, bear in mind, now, once again, these are voluntary surveys. There's surveys that Steam sends out to find out what PC build you're using for the games that you play on their platform. And with this device is targeting to be better than 70% of those that volunteer for that survey. Now, I have to keep on saying the word volunteer, because they have, 160 mil plus consumers. Sometimes it goes up beyond that. And I would say less than half probably actually participate in that survey. So take that with a grain of salt. But this is targeting for those that are running 1080p boxes that they may have built in 2018 type of deal. This will outperform those by a good bit. In some cases, this might even outperform people that built a lower spec PC just to get into PC gaming, that may have built their machine in 2022 or 2023. Nice. I don't think that this is going to set the world afire as far as its visual graphics. Like, this thing is going to be geared to be more of a 60 frame smooth playing gaming device that some of the graphical stuff on like these side scrollers, Metrovanias, and things like that. Oh, it'll definitely play 4K and probably not even hiccup or anything. But when you get to something like a Cyberpunk, it might be more of a variable refresh. Well, not variable refresh rate, but like a variable resolution type of deal. So that way you get the consistent 60 frames, but explosions, a lot of enemies on screen, it might dial down to like a 1080 setup. Maybe a little bit less, but I think 1080 will be like their baseline across the board. So it'll still look good on a TV, but that's what this is geared for. So if you're a PC household that has an awesome $2,000, $5,000 system already, and you just want to add a secondary system and you don't want to spend another $2,000 building it, and you want something for the TV, I think this will be a good alternative. Can you build something better for around the same price? Sure, but not everybody is either as tech savvy or wants to be as tech savvy. There are people that can do it and just would rather buy a piece of hardware that they know these devs, much like they did for the Steam Deck, optimize their games to be on that smaller screen and device. They'll probably do the same. Like the way I look at it is the games that will be optimized for this are going to be basically a super version of the Steam Deck's, version. So anything that Steam Deck approved, you want to bump up the visuals, maybe add 4K textures or something to that effect. That's what this will be. So this will almost be like, think of the Steam Deck as the Series S, and this is being the Series X to just the Steam Deck. Now, it's not, when you compare it to the current day consoles, it's a newer chipset. It's not the same terabytes, but it's on a new generation of chipset. So it's around about the same ballpark as far as what the optimal performance would be. Can you get more out of the Steam machine? Possibly, but that's also because you can go into the menus and you'll have that ability, much like you do with the Steam Deck or any handheld, and turn down the shadows. If crisp shadows are not as much of a thing that you want, you can turn it to the lower setting and probably not notice a difference really as far as the visuals when you're playing the game. So you'll have a little bit more range than what they have on the PS5 or even the Series X to get things dialed in, keep them at 60 frames, and still look good on a 4K TV. But I think this, if you're a console player and you were looking to get into PC space, this is not a bad alternative. Like there are other obviously alternatives where there are mini PCs. If you've listened to Kay Asante on a lot of the things you can do as far as in the gaming, whether it's handhelds or mini PCs, those were ranging anywhere from the low 600 range all the way up to 900 on average. Now, there are ones obviously that go to $2,000 that are rocking a mini 40, like a mini 4080 or a mobile 4080, like a laptop one in those boxes. But those are for the people that want those extra visuals that are going to be, 4K resolution on a TV, 60 frames or 90 frames or even better kind of deal. Then you're basically spending, build your own PC money at that point. But this will be in that same space for those that were running like a Ryzen 5 chip with an onboard or basically an APU setup where it's the CPU and GPU are combined into one. Even though these are technically separate, it's more of like they're joined but not separate devices. So that's where the upgradability, you lose out on something like this, whether it's the Steam machine or the mini PCs. But I think this is a nice alternative to building your own PC if you don't want to dive into all the nitty gritty on that. If you are a household, like perfect example for me when I built PCs for the boys. Now they were on their own Xbox One console, then they got their own Series S console. Then I introduced them to PC because they were doing well in school. So it's like, all right, this will be their reward. We built PCs for them. They were about $1,100 a piece for a 1080 box that was a Ryzen 5 with like a Super 1660 or a 1660 Super. If something like this had been around and it was in that price point of $600 to $800, it would have been a better bet, and it would have probably given them similar visuals or better visuals and similar frame rates, or maybe lesser frame rates to the max, but overall visually it would be as pleasing to their eyes and probably better on my wallet in comparison. But we'll see where this price is out. I still think it's under $1,000. I'm hoping 600 plus 100 for the controller for the 512. And then for anybody that wants 2 GB or 2 terabytes, you could probably buy a SSD to replace it yourself if you're comfortable in doing that for less than what the 2 terabyte will be. But we'll see. But I think this will give us some insight possibly of what to expect on pricing on the next Xbox, because it will be more than likely pricier than what this Steam machine is by at least 100, if not 200. But we'll see how all of that pans out.
Well, it's funny because, the next Xbox, we keep saying that, right? And I think that it's safe to say we are not exactly sure who is going to be making the next Xbox, right? Again,
Mhm.
we know and we have heard, and they haven't confirmed it or not, but we know that it's coming. The expectation for Microsoft's own hardware and potential handheld is 2027.
Mhm.
It would have been pretty great to have that, that package of hardware release on the 25th anniversary, but apparently that's not going to happen, right? But with all of that said, we know that because they are going to be the first of the big three to do OEM hardware, next year could levy, and again, folks, this is all rumors, the first non designed Xbox or Microsoft Xbox. It could come from someone like, let's say, for instance, Asus.
Mhm.
Like, they have already partnered with them. The handheld is actually doing better than they thought it would be.
Yeah.
Now, you can still find the I was going to say the S model, but you can still find the regular Ally in the wild. The
Mhm.
Ally X, on the other hand, and this is the one that's a bit of a head scratcher and a bit of surprise considering where we are in the world. That's the one that is very difficult to come across. I saw
Yeah.
people just getting theirs and posting it on social media over the weekend. And mind you, these are from original pre-orders.
Yeah.
So they are in fact having a difficult time, and it probably has to do with the pricing of, the memories. As a matter of fact, I have a story here. We're not so much going to go into it, so I'm not going to really add it, but you know what? I may add it just for shits and giggles. We have a story here from WCCF Tech where they have confirmed via AMD, and AMD has issued a notification to all of its partners that it will raise the prices of its GPUs at the minimum of 10% due to rising memory pricing. So not I mean this is something, Fuzzy, that is affecting everybody. And again, they go on to say specifically at the minimum of 10%, which means that it could be higher. So again, if you are someone in the market for hardware, you might want to be looking towards Black Friday. I don't know if you're going to see sales the same way that you used to see sales, but again, if you can get something that's even a bit cheaper than when you were originally thinking of purchasing, maybe it's still a W. I mean, that's entirely up to you. But I again, there's we don't really have much. We don't really know much with the Steam Box 2.0. I think it is going to sell. I don't know who it's going to sell to. It's not going to sell to me because I am not in the market for it. I think that it is pretty cool, to be honest with you, that if you are someone that does have potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of Steam games, and you want, I think this is going to show up in other people's. They have their rig, they have their setup. This is where they play their games. They're comfortable, but they always wanted to be able to take that and put that in the living room or put that into a spare bedroom or anywhere. And I think that it's going to that's going to be the people that it's for. The pricing, though, the pricing is going to be the real trick, is whether or not they can afford to put this thing out, or whether people can actually afford to buy this thing. And again, you said the 512 being, maybe 6 with 100 for the controller, so maybe it's 700.
Mhm.
And 700 used to be, and I say used to be, and I know this, and I'm not even a PC guy, a very functioning PC back, 2, 3 years ago, you spent
Yeah.
$700. You got a decent PC. You're playing
Yeah.
1080p, maybe you push the envelope and you're playing 1440p. But you know what? If you're only spending 700, you're okay with that because you know what you're spending. But now the 2 terabyte, which again, I put it this way, I would not be comfortable switching out anything. Like I'm a console guy. I know a lot of people in this chat are console players. We like what we like. It's a closed box. It works. Put it on the shelf, plug it in, it goes. That's the kind of gamer I am, which is why I'm excited for what Xbox is going to potentially be doing in a couple of years with their PC-like device, right? Like it's going to be an Xbox. It's going to look like an Xbox. It's going to run like an Xbox, but it's going to be a PC with power. Yes, sign me up. But I'm very interested to see what happens with Valve, but it is pretty telling that coming from multiple sources, and again, I trust Andy Robinson and his sources that that they're not subsidizing. And I think that if Valve is saying that they are not going to subsidize, I think it's safe to assume or even plan for that Xbox and PlayStation are going to be doing the same thing. I don't think there's going to be subsidization like it used to be, where they were taking losses. And again, all you have to do is look at the software sales, Fuzzy. Software sales are down, unfortunately, we know this thanks to Matt Piscatella and Circana. Software sales have continued to decline because people can't afford it. That's why services like Xbox Game Pass seen an increase, even though they raised prices. And again, we're not talking about it specifically. I got to get some more information, so I'm going to reach out to Ecstasies, privately to find out what he knows. But apparently, he did post something over the weekend where even though the price increased for Xbox Game Pass, so did its subscriber count. Now, that may be because people were buying in bulk. That may be people were like, well, you know what? I can get it here for 17. I'd rather pay 17 than 30. So I'm buying a year's worth. And maybe that's how it happened. But I'm trying to get more information. That's something we will definitely cover at some point this week. But great opening salvo, Fuzzy. But any last thoughts in regards to how this confirmation from Steam kind of affects what Xbox and PlayStation might be doing towards the future?
Well, one side note or caveat that I wanted to express out there, this Steam machine can be an Xbox as well if you install Windows 11. I know this is going to be controversial to some extent, but think of it this way. You can play all your Steam games and only your Steam games on that device. If you're comfortable, you might be able to sideload anything you bought from the Microsoft Store or GOG or Epic. It's a little more involved. The average person may not want to do that, but installing Windows is pretty easy. Do a dual boot setup. You can then natively install any Game Pass games or any of your Xbox PC games. Same thing with Epic, same thing with all the other stuff, and still have access to your Steam games on that side. So in a weird way, this Steam machine can be an Xbox if you should choose to do so. But I'm interested to see how well this does. Like me and a few others were talking over the weekend on Party Chat, like the Steam Deck by Nintendo standards or Xbox's standards or even PlayStation standards may not have been a success, but out of the more recent flurry of, what is it, like 10 million handheld PCs over the past couple of years, that includes the ROGs, that includes the MSI Claws, that includes the Legion Go's and stuff. The Steam Deck is about half of that market. Like they've sold, I think, between 4 and 5 million within that 2-year period. So they're the dominant force in that space. Not saying that they could do that or replicate that in the console space, but they were happy probably just selling 2 million, and to do more than double of that is why Steam is like, yeah, we should keep on making different hardware. So they're probably looking at, if they sell 2 to 5 million of these, that will be a success probably in their eyes. But I think this might do better than that. I don't think it's going to do, Xbox or PlayStation or even Switch numbers in that short period of time. But I do think in the first year or two, we might see or hear that they sold 2 million of them. And in a 2-year period, it might reach 5 million. And I think that will be enough for Gabe to have a smile on his face and realize that, all right, this was a worthwhile venture. And I think the reason why they're doing this is because once Xbox Play Anywhere and their next generation console is out there, it's not that people are going to leave Steam, but remember, they had Xbox or Microsoft as a whole on their PC side of things, and their store will be probably more in tune with the PC side. They only take a 12% cut. Steam takes a 30% cut. Devs, even though right now they still favor Steam because of the popularity and the player base, but it could start eating away more so than what Epic has been able to do over the years. As far as that player base, because of Xbox's current player base is probably a bit larger than what Epic has access to. And that being said, that 12% cut, meaning that devs pocket 88% versus 70% on Steam, could favor Xbox in that term. So having a device that's kind of in that similar space is maybe their way of kind of like, all right, well, we'll keep our Steam fanboys or those that prefer Steam over Epic and GOG right where they're at, much like an Apple situation without it being fully locked down. Like Steam is also about if you want to mod their products, that's fine, but a lot of people take stuff out the box and just want to use it as is, and Steam is probably one of those, at least on the PC side of things, that makes that rather easy in comparison to a lot of Windows-based PCs until this full screen Xbox stuff is out there for PCs if you should choose to turn your PC into a gaming PC only kind of thing. So we'll see how it all plays out.
It's going to be, look, again, it's one of those things that I'm looking forward to seeing where the industry goes, because look, it's going to change for Xbox players. It's going to kind of stay the same for Nintendo Switch players because Nintendo Switch 2 just came out. So you got to figure that console is going to be here for at least another 6 years, right? So you're not looking toward the Switch 3 potentially, or even an old. I mean, unless they update it, maybe they do an OLED model, like they did with the original Switch. We'll see. PlayStation's another one that I think is going to have a powerful box, but I think it's going to be exactly what you expect. It's going to play PlayStation games. I just don't see them doing what Xbox is doing, at least right now. Xbox, I find to be in a very unique position. And we're going to segue into, you saw me with a play on words. And shout out to Music 72 for actually catching that, where I have basically Xbox anywhere. There's a thought and a reason for it. But let me catch up on Super Chats here, and we'll move on to the second topic of the show. First of all, we have a very generous $2 Super Chat from a huge Bears fan from Chi-Town, of course, Sith Lord. Congratulations. They put a whooping on my Steelers, and yeah, boo Mike Tomlin. Fire that man. He says, happy Victory Monday. Bear down. Bring on the birds. And of course, as it comes the way of a very generous $2 Super Chat. So shout out to you, brother. We also have Brett Bingham in the chat, dropping a very generous $5 Super Chat. He says 40 million. That's still pretty big, even though it shrank. Pause. Brett, oh my God. Yeah, I mean, listen, it is what it is. Every time you talk to somebody about Xbox, they've lost millions. I don't know how this happens. Mine, I actually have quite a few of them. I have a Series S, which I gave to Tyler, and I have 2 Series X. They're still here. They haven't evaporated yet. Maybe that happens, and maybe that's how they're getting less and less consoles in the market. But again, funny all around. Mac22 in the chat drops a very generous $2 Super Chat. He says the price of RAM has literally tripled. Hashtag tariff. Yeah, yeah, man. If you're looking for hardware, this is probably not the time. It's just not a really good time for anybody right now, especially if you're building a PC. And the prices are just insane. Like, it's just crazy out there. So if you are someone that needs to upgrade, maybe now is just not the time. And again, it's one of those things that, you wonder, was this such a great time for the Steam machine to come out with everything that's happening? Because, next year, there is a rumor that for holiday of 26, there could be an OEM Xbox. And it does make sense because, again, if you don't have your own hardware ready, and you already had planned for a partner device, which this is going to be the first ever OEM Xbox device, that would a powerful console like that, giving Xbox players a preview into what could come the following year during holiday, would be a really cool thing to go along with Gears of War E-Day and Forza Horizon 6 and Halo Combat Evolved Remake and Fable and all these other incredible games that we're going to be getting next year. It would be pretty awesome to have a more powerful piece of hardware. But again, that's all speculation. Um, we have a uh, uh, channel member chat from our generous friend all the way from Hawaii, who has been a channel member, ladies and gentlemen, for 25 months. So that's over 2 years. That is very kind of you, brother. And thank you so much for the consistent generosity through your gifted subs. He goes like he goes on to say this: Mahalo to Mrs. Boom and Boom for creating the best community on YouTube. Respect and appreciate the superb panels and the amazing chat. Gaming is life. Aloha. Well, brother, first of all, thank you so much for the very, very kind words. And look, it's super easy to be a negative POS, right? You all you have to do is look on social media and see how disgusting some of these people are, right? And it's still video games. Like, honestly, I get it. Video game platforms are like, Chicago Bears versus the Packers, or the Ravens versus the Steelers, or Dallas versus the Eagles. And there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of aggression. That's sports. So you can equate video games to that to some extent, but some of the stuff that I have seen, look, it's on all communities. It's not just PlayStation and Nintendo. You very rarely hear any of the Nintendorks going out there and rubble rousing or anything like that. You just don't. It's usually Xbox. It's usually PlayStation. And you know what the truth of the matter is? As much as there's a lot of the PlayStation community that I don't like because they're just so disgusting, there's a lot of Xbox community members that I don't mention, I would never have on the show, and I would never support because they're just as disgusting. They make it personal, which it doesn't have to be. It's just about games, for crying out loud. I don't see why people have to make it personal, but I guess everyone's trying to win a point or something. Well, that's not what we do here. Sure. Will we give each platform the business? Will we be pointed? Yes. But we try to keep it a buck. We try to keep it happy and lucky and go lucky, if you will. And if that's for you, then hang out, enjoy your time here. If you're looking for, you know, cursing and us to kind of get overly pointed about a particular creator, we're just not going to do that here. And I'm happy about that. Again, the show is not for everybody, but it is for somebody. And we have over 300 people here on a holiday week that, a lot of people are traveling, and we're happy to have you here. So thank you so much for the very kind words and, of course, the continued generosity. And speaking of gifted subs, he has done this more times than I can actually remember how to count. And that is Aris_EMS, folks. He has gifted 5 double barrel gaming memberships. Brother, that is incredibly generous of you. Thank you so much for the support. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, if you in fact did snag one of his gifted subs, please be kind and thank him in the chat. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure he would as well. But we have a chat here from a super chat, a $2 super chat from Will, the Broke Boy Insider, who I got a chance to hang out with him and Nino Vostek the other day. We were getting down with some Black Ops 7. I got to tell you, Nino's a beast. That guy is no joke. You definitely want him on your team. I actually was doing pretty good, to be honest with you. I'm coming into double digits, sometimes as high as 20 kills, and I'm averaging higher kills than deaths. So I'm doing it right. There's a lot that I really like about Black Ops 7. There's a lot that I actually really don't. There's a lot of the gear that it's just not resonating with me the same way that it did in Black Ops 6. I have found my combination. I'm using the drone that does go out and seek. So if someone has like a score streak, it seeks them and blows them up, which is awesome. And I also just overclocked the remote control car to have armor, so I can literally roll up on somebody and they're shooting at it, and usually they will blow it up. No, that armor I have, I can roll right up on them and I've been doing really good. I've taken out as many as 4 people with that thing. So that I have figured out my combination, but I'm waiting for the seasons to start. Because I like buying some of the pre-made guns and then making them my own. I've only found like 2 or 3 guns that I consistently go back to. And yeah, I need more choice. I had a lot of choice in Black Ops 6, which I very much enjoyed. I'll get there with Black Ops 7, but it's not as good for me as 6 was, especially with the tech gear. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm enjoying it. I put a ridiculous amount of hours over the weekend. Even Tyler watched me play. He doesn't like it that much as he likes like Mario Party or Smash. He's a monster in Smash. But listen, Fuzzy Belvedere, let's get into the next topic here. Now, look, this is one of those conversations that's either going to get you super hyped for being an Xbox fan and excited for what they're going to do in the future, Fuzzy, or it's going to piss you off because we're going to be gushing about what Xbox is doing. This isn't an Xbox versus PlayStation conversation. This is just focusing on what Xbox is doing. Wednesday, to kind of just give you guys and gals the heads up, primetime gaming is still scheduled for 7 p.m. It's going to run about maybe an hour and 15. We're going to be doing, for fun, the Xbox in review for 2025. Myself, Kay Asante, Hargeet Chani, I might try and get a guest or 3 in there to kind of give us their takes, both negative and positive, about what Xbox has done right this year, because it's pretty much over for what Xbox is going to do unless there's going to be a surprise announcement at the Game Awards, which is happening on December 11th. And of course, we'll be covering that as everything leads up to it, whether it be leaks or the actual showcase, which I'm personally not covering. I'm going to watch it as a fan. I will be having a breakfast at Boom the following Friday morning with the regular panel to break all of that down. But look, as you saw, Fuzzy, I did a play on words. Now, there's Xbox Play Anywhere. There's Quick Resume. There's all the things that we love about Xbox Game Pass. I love the Series X. I think that it's still the most powerful console. It is underused. It does, even though the PlayStation 5 Pro is in some aspects better. There's no doubt about it, because it's a mid-gen refresh, so it should be. There are times where the PSSR is just not working, and a lot of developers are skipping on it. I just wish that some of the development community really spent time on the X and kind of pushed it, because I don't think either console has really been pushed to its maximum capacity, if you will, or potential, or whatever. But one of the things that popped out the other day is this that Windows PCs are being optimized for TV and gamepads now, and it's the first version of Xbox FSE going out, and it's out to testers. This story comes the way of Jez Corden of Windows Central, as he's broken many stories before. And look, this is just, Fuzzy, another notch in the belt of what Xbox is doing. Now, look, we can go back and we can just sit and talk about how Xbox lost this generation to both Nintendo and Sony, right? That they did. But they are doing things that are making a lot of the gaming community uncomfortable. And I don't necessarily mean Xbox players. I'm talking about the actual games industry. And that's players as well, but developers, publishers, hardware manufacturers. Look, Xbox has always been ahead of the curve, good or bad, right? They were ahead of the curve with many things that came out and then were discontinued. Zune being one of them. And if they would have stuck with it, it could have been a thing, right? Cortana, voice activated assistants. It's all it was. They were ahead of the curve, and guess what? Now it's standard fare for pretty much anything. They went away from it. Um, where they were ahead, and thank goodness they decided to stick with it, is Xbox Game Pass, right? Xbox Game Pass, especially if you look at what has happened to the world, not just this country, but the world is just crazy. Pricing is just insane. And there have been more games, I think, released this year than any one time. I mean, chat, I'm looking at you. How's that backlog looking? Pretty ridiculous, right? Fuzzy talks about it all the time because all he wants to play is Forza or Gran Turismo or goes
Division,
Division or goes back
Diablo.
to Diablo, but he also has 171 games in his backlog,
Yeah.
and that's like me. It's just freaking crazy. But it's other things that Xbox has continued to do with, like, I mean, being able to play your game anywhere. It's it's something that's new. It's something that is being used to great degree. I think that you're going to see this really ramp up once the launch that Jez was talking about gets to everyone. Right now it's for testers.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I see a lot of people talk about is a unified UI. And it's something I've talked about it personally. I think that if this is going to work, if Xbox Play Anywhere, or at least in my terms, Xbox Anywhere is going to work, then every screen that you can play an Xbox game on needs to look and act the same. How close they're to doing that, Fuzzy, I'm not exactly sure, but this story that I have here from Windows Central kind of gives us a bit of an idea into what is happening. So again, this story was not written by Jez Corden. It was written by Zach Bowden, but it was, of course, retweeted by Jez. And Zach goes on to say in the story, Microsoft launches its full screen experience preview for Windows 11 gaming PCs, expanding beyond handhelds for the first time. And in its subcategory, it says you can now try out the new Xbox full experience or full screen experience mode on Windows 11 powered gaming PCs as Microsoft expands support beyond its current handhelds. And Zach goes on to say, Microsoft has rolled out the first public preview build of Xbox's new full screen experience for gaming PCs. This is the first time that the feature will be available to try on non handheld devices, as previously it was only available on devices with screens less than 10 inches, such as the Xbox Ally X. And it goes on to say here, quote, designed with console style navigation in mind, the new Xbox full screen experience delivers a clean, distraction free interface for controller first gaming. Microsoft says a pair of controller, or goes on to say, pair a controller to your PC for smooth task switching and a streamlined gaming experience on your desktop, laptop, or tablet. Now, look, again, Fuzzy, this is where Xbox is going. Now, whether or not them losing the generation is what sparked this or what birthed this is to be desired. Your thoughts and theories are going to be different from mine. They needed to do something different. They could not just come out with another Xbox, whatever. It needed to be different. It had to be something better than what Sony is going to do. Now, Sony, look, this is not an us versus them conversation. Sony's console is going to be a very powerful box. There is no doubt about it. It is probably going to be an $800 box. The Xbox could be a $1,000 box, and based on the pricing of what's happening now, that could be the case. But the problem, and I don't necessarily know if you're a PlayStation purist that it is a problem. If you are someone that likes what you like, meaning that you're going to go out, you bought the PlayStation 3, you bought the 4, you bought PlayStation 5, hell, you may even upgrade it to PlayStation 5 Pro, and that's what you like. There's nothing absolutely wrong with that. You are going to be able to play Xbox games thanks to their multi-platform strategy, which we know is in full effect. But the interesting part is that if it doesn't bother you as the consumer, then your PlayStation 6 playing your older PlayStation games and the newer PlayStation 6 games, if that's good for you, then this box is going to be for you. Where I think Xbox might actually, and I'm not saying they're going to sell more consoles. What I'm saying is that there are a lot of entry built PC level gamers, right? They come in, they spend their 700 because they know Steam, they know that the games are priced considerably lower. They're Steam sales, they don't have to pay online. There's a lot of things that you as a PC player can do. If you want to upgrade your memory, you can do that. You want to upgrade your RAM, you can do that. Same thing for your storage. You have the power. It's just your limitation is your wallet. Where Xbox or the next box or whatever you want to call it, this is going to open the door for both the console gamers like me who do not want to dabble in PC, but I actually think, Fuzzy, based on this unified UI to rule them all, this box might actually be something that someone who is still on an entry level PC might consider upgrading to because it is going to be powerful. It is going to be just like a PC experience. And and I say if because this is a rumor, if Xbox removes the pay to play online, I think that really does put PlayStation in a bit of a pickle because they can buy this new console and it's going to act like a PC. It's going to have power like a PC. It's going to give you the ability to play on any of these stores, but it's also going to, more importantly, for knuckleheads like me, be a console that you just plug and play. And honestly, and I really think that, again, sorry for being long winded, folks, but you're here for a conversation. I think at the crux, at the center of this conversation, is people are only eyeing what Xbox and Microsoft are doing in pieces rather than just standing still, taking a step back and watching how all of the things that they're doing, Xbox Play Anywhere, the new hardware, being able to, use your stores, any of your favorite stores on your box, on your handheld, buy games, play games where you want to play them. This is the overall big picture. I want to get your thoughts on this big picture.
Okay, so I'll start from the PlayStation player standpoint. If you're a PlayStation player and you've already dabbled in PC, you have a good PC to play all of the Xbox games or do emulation, or just to play the games that don't come to console, like your Escape from Tarkov's and whatnot, then this big picture mode, as long as you're not trying to do your taxes and maybe an Excel spreadsheet on occasion, although you'll still be able to do it, if you switch to this big picture mode on your PC as the pretty much the startup and the front facing part of the operating system, then essentially your PC is like a console as far as ease of use. Some people might object to that, but I wonder if any of those individuals have tried the full, was it Steam big picture mode? Because they've had a big picture mode for at least about 5 or 6 years, and I won't say that it's not good. It's just that a lot of PC people aren't using it. Some have gone with, I think it's Bazite, where it's a little bit more customizable. It has some of the features of like what you see in the handhelds operating system or even the big picture mode for Steam, but it's more curated to your game library and things like that. Now, the reason why this would be a good thing for the PlayStation owners to have PCs, if you're setting it up in that Xbox mode, it'll filter in all of your game libraries. So you won't have to bounce between launchers. It can basically do all of that lifting for you without it being like, oh, I got to wait for Steam to load. I mean, you'll still have to wait for Steam to load, but it'll be something that while you're seeing like title screens it's doing that stuff in the background. So I think it's a good idea to reach those PlayStation players that aren't going to buy an Xbox console but already have a PC. Essentially, they can, if they choose, turn their PC into an Xbox, and making their aggregate library a lot more accessible, or a lot easier to get a hold of. Um, as far as for Xbox players, if you do already have a PC, and like I said, you're not looking to do your taxes as a priority or Excel spreadsheets and things like that, you could give this a try. Now, the reason why I haven't given it a try is because I'd rather wait until Windows 12 is out there, or at least a version of this Xbox everywhere type of thing is based on Windows 12 as opposed to 11. And just brief background, to me, Windows 10, I had it filtered to where all the bloat I've removed. I uninstalled all the bloat. I turned off everything that I don't need at startup, and it was working great, but they don't support it anymore. Since I've switched to Windows 11, it is a bloat nightmare, because every update where I take some of that bloat off of there, it puts it back on there. And I haven't figured out a way to keep certain things updated without putting the crap that I took off of there back on there. Now, that's not to say that it's bad in any way, but I'm used to doing that behind the scenes stuff to make it as efficient as possible and not have, random resources being used by stuff in the background that I don't intend to use. Like, I only need one audio driver type of setup for my sound card to send sound to the speakers. I don't need the Blu-ray, DVD stuff, that since I don't have a Blu-ray player on that box, I don't need that back on the machine. Uninstall it, get rid of it. I don't need it, because I have that. I play the Blu-rays on the Series X at that point. But Windows 12, the reason why I want to wait for Windows 12 for me personally is because, to my understanding, and this is not breaking NDA or anything like that, Windows 12 will have a version of Quick Resume. How much of a quick resume in comparison to the series consoles, I am not sure, but it will be more than being able to switch between two games. It will more than likely be similar to what we have currently, where you may not want to do it on an online always game, but a single player game, you can probably bounce between 5 or 6 rather easily, or maybe even more, without having to worry about the suspend state of that game. So that's something that they're clearly working on for Windows 12, and I'm hoping they slowly introduce that into this build that they're testing out. But the great thing about this build in its current form is, if you have all of those free games that you've been getting from Epic, or games that you've actually purchased at Epic, like maybe you bought Alan Wake 2 over at Epic Store, and you get their weekly free games, and you bought, let's say, The Witcher there as opposed to on GOG or something, you'll have that library listed in your library of games. So when you're doing that full screen mode or full screen experience for Xbox, when you go to where your game library is, it'll have everything there. So just like you see on your console where it says Game Pass, or it says Ubisoft or EA, it'll have like a little Steam logo, or it'll have like a little Epic logo and stuff. Now, the only thing but they're still working on it. The only thing that's a little less appealing visually is that the images that load may not be the normal artwork that you're used to seeing. So, like, let's say perfect example, I have Hades 2 on my PC. When I go to the Xbox, full screen experience, it's showing I guess the one guy that's like your battle trainer type of deal. It shows his face as opposed to the cover art for the game. Now, that's something that I personally can go back and switch the icons and stuff like that, but I'm hoping that they will make it easier either for the end user to do it, or it will automatically look for the file from the Steam game for what would be considered the album cover. Because obviously that exists, because on my Steam Deck, Hades 2 shows the normal artwork that you would expect to see for that. So they're still working on a few things, but functionality-wise, I think this is a way for those that aren't really bothering with normal mundane PC stuff at home. Like, if you're using a PC at work, don't try installing this at the work PC. But if you're let's say you have a Dell that you bought a couple of years ago, and it is the one that you do taxes on, but other than that, you play solitaire on it on occasion. Maybe you play you played Silk Song on it or something along those lines, or you play like one of those RTS games on it, this might be something to give a try. Now you'll still be able to go back and do your normal Windows stuff. It's just that those resources that it would need to do your taxes or an Excel spreadsheet will be dormant until you do that switch back to normal desktop. And then when you choose to switch back to gaming, I think at least how it works on the handheld, I think to this moment, you have to, do like a restart. So you'd have to restart your PC, it would come back up in Xbox mode. Oh, you want to do your taxes? All right, switch to desktop, do your taxes, restart it, and then go back to gaming, and it'll almost appear like it's a console, and the UI will be able to work well with a controller as opposed to having to have that keyboard and mouse readily by your side type of thing. So it's this whole move from Xbox is a pretty cool move, especially for a lot of us console players that aren't quite ready to make that leap into the PC space. And for those that are, if you just want to jazz up your PC as far as how it works and not having to have it where you always have to use mouse and keyboard, you can easily use your controller, then that might be the thing to do. Now, the only drawback I have, I probably have to do a mode switch, and I haven't put the other two modes for my Elite controller, but I do it wired on my PC, and it works perfectly fine. When I do the wireless, on occasion, it sometimes winds up turning on the Series X. So it's like, that's the only thing maybe it's a user error. Like I said, I haven't set up any other profiles on this. So maybe setting up a profile specifically for PC where it will show purple instead of green or something for the button. That might make more sense, where it'll know that it's synced to the PC as opposed to the Xbox. But the headset is another one where every time I turn the headset on, I can get it to work on the PC, but it also turns on the Series X. And that's some of the things I hope they figure out, because that I actively tried to figure out, and I just gave up on putting it, linking it with the PC. I just use the earbuds and the mic when I'm talking to people in the party if I'm on my PC playing games and stuff. But if you're a gamer and your PC is not really for spreadsheets, this is something that's worth trying, especially if you want some of that bloat stuff to kind of be, put to sleep or removed. This might be the thing to test. And I encourage people that do this, give your feedback. Like I said, I've given feedback. I know Paris, if he's even listening in the background, he said it before as well about the artwork for the games as far as how it shows in the library. That's feedback that they need to hear. So that way, when they do the 1.0 release of this, it pretty much feels like you've turned your PC into a console in a good way, and being able to easily use or navigate stuff with your controller, much like you would do, like, let's say if you do browsing on your console from the controller for your Microsoft rewards points and you use a controller to do it, you'd be able to do the same thing on this PC and have it work just as easily. But it's cool. I'm hoping at some point PlayStation tries this, because then that way you can have like your PlayStation PC store, but let them figure that out. If they're late to the party, oh well, it'll just be one of those things that they'll eventually do what Xbox is doing after Xbox has shown that it's plausible, it works, and people are happy with it. Then they'll be like, oh yeah, we invented this new thing, kind of like Apple, but no shade to Apple either. But yeah, this new full screen mode, I'm all for it. Give your feedback if you want to see your backgrounds better, or the artwork for the games better, or have it where that game card doesn't necessarily show all the things. Like maybe you just want to see achievements and your friends that have played it. And if anybody has like a looking for group thing, especially if you're playing Arc Raiders on your PC or your console, because I believe that's a Play Anywhere title. This is a good way to blur those lines between console and PC to the point where it'll feel just as easy and less intimidating using your PC as a console than you may have thought of it in the past. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just one of those new things that Xbox is doing, and it's basically something that they just had to do. Coming out with another console not to sell, because look, all you got to go back is to the Xbox 360, and they have consistently sold less. where I think Xbox finds themselves, and I've said this before, there are a lot of gray beers here that we don't like the idea that they went multi-plat. We do like the idea of exclusives. This is something we've talked to the point of nauseum. It's just is what it is. But because of this move, even though a lot of us didn't like it, it makes business sense, but it does give them the ability to make a move like this, to do something so drastically different in the console space than they've done before, because they are going to be selling games here, there, and everywhere. The head scratcher still to this day is they haven't done much with Nintendo Switch 2. I don't know if that's a Nintendo thing, a Nintendo Switch 2 console limitation thing, or what. Even Sony themselves have only put like one or two games on there. I know Lego Adventures was on there. Lego Horizon Adventures. I don't think it did well there, but um, even Sony themselves hasn't put a ton of games on there. Will they? I mean, the Switch is a very popular system, so I guarantee both publishers are trying to do it. I just don't know what the holdup is. But for Xbox specifically, when you look at Xbox Game Pass, Xbox Play Anywhere, Quick Resume, Smart Delivery, these are all things that have literally changed the game. No pun intended. And they're doing it again. And I like the idea that for non-console players, they may be a way for the, I don't want to say above average. I want to say the lower tiered console players who do go out and buy their parts every now and again when there's a sale, but they have 1080p machines. As a matter of fact, I guarantee if you did like a search of what is the most used 1080p 1440, it's probably 1080p gaming is probably the top part of PC gaming. If this new console comes out and it's not egregiously priced, meaning $1,000, and someone might want to consider upgrading uh, to a better device, maybe this is their path. How many of them are going to come over, folks? Literally have no idea. This thing is two years out, but I think there's going to be a test for the market if next year the OEM device does in fact release. But we'll certainly see. But look, ladies and gentlemen, again, on a week that there's not much news happening. If there's anything that's breaking, we will cover it tomorrow. We're covering it on Wednesday. Obviously, there's no show on Thursday. There's not going to be a Breakfast at Boom on Friday. I've already informed the guys. Mrs. Boom and I are going to be doing stuff here, getting ready for the holiday because we want to get Christmas going early so we can really enjoy it. So I'm going to be going to the gym in the morning, doing what I got to do there, and getting ready for the weekend. And we're going to say weekend festivities. So we're doing shows. We did one today. We're doing one tomorrow. We're doing one on Wednesday, same time, same bat channel. But there's not going to be a show on Thursday for obvious reasons. It's the holiday, but there will not be a new show on Friday because I kind of want to recharge my batteries as well. And I really want the panel that normally is there, Fuzzy, Crispy, Cork, and, and occasionally, we get one or two other guests. I want people to kind of just enjoy their long holiday weekend. And we'll be back at it next Monday. And of course, it's the ramp up. The minute we hit December, we're starting to talk Game Awards and what could possibly happen. So it's going to be fun and very interesting. And then towards the end of the month, we'll be doing our $500 giveaway for our 8th annual Christmas with Mr. and Mrs. Boomstick. But a big thank you to all. Shout out to Smokey 1823. Smoke, great to see you. He says, "What are we going to do without you, Boom?" I hopefully play a lot of games because I'm definitely going to be on, and you'll see me on playing a lot of. I think I just got to the end of level 55, so I'm going to prestige for the first time in Black Ops 7. And I'm gonna again. I love it and hate it because whenever you prestige, you kind of wipe everything. I can't stand when I have to find everything again, or at least level up to get everything. But such is the life of Call of Duty. But look, that's going to do it for us here. Thank you again for all of the super chats, channel member chats, and gifted subs as they continue to come in. and allow for Mrs. Boom and I to do the big giveaways. And of course, we are having one at the end of December, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago. But Fuzzy Belvedere, let's sell the brand of the Mrs. podcast known as Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, Friday evening, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where they talk about really hot off the presses film, as well as some really, I've never heard of that. Why is a zombie running around with a surfboard kind of films? But sell the brand, brother. Where can people check out the horror podcast each and every Friday? And more importantly, follow you guys on social media.
Well, as always, love doing this podcast on Monday morning or Monday afternoons with you. Love talking about breaking news and even some of the stuff in the gaming industry. This week is, if you have the time off, I greatly encourage you to tackle that backlog as best you can. There's a lot of good, I guess you could say, multiplayer games out there where you could squad up, whether it's Arc Raiders, Diablo, Division, just about everything out there. Definitely get into some gaming time if you can this week. If you're in Diablo, if you see me playing, if you follow me on Xbox, it's just Fuzzy Belvedere, Fuzzy Space Belvedere. You'll be able to find me. I have a build that can kill Lilith now, so if you want to join me, just send a message or ask request to join a party or something like that, and I'll try to see if I can carry some people through. But other than that, love talking about the industry, love talking to everybody in the chat. And for those that are horror fans, I put the link in the chat for Fright Night with Ferocious Fee. Me and the missus did a little bit of back and forth about Sinners. I was a fan of the movie. She not necessarily was. She's more of a, I guess you could say, Twilight vampire fan, but good back and forth between her and I, as well as Silent Cypher was on there as well, kind of not really being a referee, but giving his thoughts on the movie as well. So check out that most recent episode. Definitely a lot of pointed discussion there. But this Friday we will be doing Thanksgiving, which I'm gonna be honest, it's one of those movies kind of like what Boom talked about, where the zombie runs around. Well, this instead of a zombie, it's a turkey running around killing folks. So be ready for that one. That one, make sure, since it's after Thanksgiving and you've already eaten probably your full of turkey, it may not be so bad. But Thanksgiving will be the movie for discussion this Friday. Once again, the link is in the chat for Fright Night with Ferocious Fee. Hope to see you guys there, and everybody take care. Have a safe and happy holiday week or time off, and see you guys for the next Xbox Lunch Break special next Monday. See you then.
Indeed, sir. Thank you so much for joining. And again, folks, please subscribe to her podcast and her YouTube channel as they're trying to get to the 1,000 mark. And put on a fun show, man. That's really what podcasting is all about, is put out fun, thought-provoking conversation. And, again, it's a horror podcast. There are horror podcasts, but not many. And this one is great. So I definitely highly recommend you subscribe and help them get to the 1,000 subscriber count. That would be pretty dope. Of course, a big thank you to everyone that tuned in today. We will be back tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Myself, Infinite Umbra, and Jamie Moran. I am writing that that show as we speak. And then, of course, on Wednesday, like I said earlier, we're going to be doing an Xbox year in review. I think there is a lot to like about what Xbox has done this year. There are some, I do have a lot of pushback, with some of the things that they haven't done right. And we're going to get into that as well. That is going to be about an hour and 15 with myself, Kay Asante, Hargeet Chani, and maybe a guest or two. And we're going to be breaking down that this Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then after that, I'm going to take the rest of the week off to kind of just enjoy the holiday season. I'm going to eat like I'm going to the chair, ladies and gentlemen. There's no doubt about that, because Mrs. Boom puts, when I say Mrs. Boom puts her foot in it, anyone from the South understands exactly what that term means. She knows how to cook. She is definitely the chef of the family. But, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in today. Please enjoy gaming on whatever console you enjoy gaming on. And, of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me, folks. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you, and that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, It doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you, you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you back here next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special.